Good afternoon to all my Secrets of Men lovers. Today I live in the city of San Antonio, I'm married, and today I want to share a part of my life that was very complicated. Sometimes things happen in our lives that we can't explain, and that can change everything. In my case, when my marriage was going through a horrible period, I felt so needy that I ended up giving myself to my therapist. Stay until the end, subscribe to the channel, and don't miss any of the details. But before I go into the details, let me introduce myself. I'm 46 years old, a tall man, standing at 1 meter 82, weighing 77 kilos. I have brown eyes and gray hair. I've been married for 26 years and I'm the father of a wonderful son. But the truth is that over the last 2 years, my intimate life hasn't been great. And I'm not here to put the blame on my wife because it was my fault. We had normal relationships like any couple, but there was always a strange feeling, an emptiness that I couldn't understand. After every encounter, I felt that something was missing. It was as if a hole was opening up inside me. That lack of connection consumed me. I spent every day thinking about what I could do to change the situation. And that's how, in a moment of desperation, I turned to my therapist. He was someone I trusted and believed could help me find out what was really going on inside me. And as I explored my inner self, I realized that in order to fix my marriage, I first needed to understand myself. This journey of self-discovery was full of challenges, but I knew it was a necessary path to recovering not only my marriage, but also my happiness. It was as if I could never leave the relationship satisfied. At first I thought it was her fault. In other words, I thought she was selfish, only wanted to satisfy herself and didn't reciprocate. I felt as if I'd spent the whole time worrying about her having as much pleasure as possible, caressing her in every possible way and form, until she'd come to her senses and then our relationship would end, without her even worrying about whether I'd at least come to my senses too. We had a frank conversation about it. She understood my problem and started to devote herself more to caressing me. At first I thought I had solved the situation because I felt more fulfilled and satisfied. But over time, that feeling of dissatisfaction came over me again. Something was always missing. There was always an emptiness inside me after I had reached my relief. This really worried me now because I was sure that the problem was with me and not with her. Vain that I am, I couldn't admit that I was no longer able to satisfy myself in an intimate relationship. So much so that I went looking for adventures outside of marriage, but to no avail. Again in the beginning, 1,000 wonders, after a while unsatisfied. There was only one way out, and that was to seek the help of a professional. So I went to an intimate relationship therapist, recommended by a friend. It was a different experience for me because never in my life had I been able to open up as much to another person as I did to him, and on a subject that had always been a point of honor for me. Love. I loved his appointments. And as they were always in the evening, I would spend the day anxiously waiting for the hours to pass so that I could get to his office, lie down on his sofa, and expose all my anxieties, needs, and pleasures that I hoped to achieve in a relationship. I confess that I hoped my problems would be solved in 2 or 3 appointments, but it had been 2 months and nothing had changed in my feelings. I was beginning to get impatient with this, and at each new appointment, I tried in disguise to show him my dissatisfaction with the treatment, but he behaved as if he didn't notice. Until one of them, irritated as I was by the unresolved problems of the day and work, I reached the peak of my irritation and said to him, "Elvis, I think I'm starting to like men." As always, without moving a muscle in his face, he said, "This is a viable solution for many men. Have you ever had or thought about having a homo experience?" I wanted to get up and swear at him, but something held me back, and I simply kept silent for the answer, and he did the same, acting as if he hadn't asked. Another month passed and he never returned to the subject, but that question never left my mind. I was indignant with him. I thought it was very pretentious of him to make that remark. I wanted to give up on everything, but I felt good going there. Those consultations relieved me. I had a lot of hope for the treatment, and since at the beginning he had said that we would have to go through 3 phases until I was completely cured, I had no choice but to insist. And to top it all off, according to him, we were entering the 2nd phase. It would be a phase in which I would learn to visually appreciate the people I came into contact with, to appreciate what was always most important, to appreciate them as if I were in an intimate relationship. And so we began the new treatment. At each appointment, I learned something new to see. I learned to appreciate every detail, every gesture made in traffic, in the office, at the movies, and finally, he made me describe what the ideal woman model would be for me. Then, without me being embarrassed like before, he began to teach me the same observation criteria, only now for men. Naturally, I assimilated his teachings, and every day I began to admire the male specimen more and more. I was enchanted by men with elegant clothes, and once again, he had me describe what the ideal man would be for me. In a few quick seconds, without thinking or breathing, I gave my description of my ideal man, and when I finished, I looked at him, expecting some comment from him. But what I saw was, for the first time on his face, a beautiful smile mixed with an expression of satisfaction. Immediately, an inexplicable heat surged through my body. I felt as if I had a fever, but I quickly realized what was happening. My ideal man was exactly him, Elvis, without taking anything away or adding anything. All I remember hearing from him was this: "At the next appointment, we'll start the third and final phase of your treatment by Thursday." Those 2 days until the next appointment seemed like an eternity. Something inside me wanted that moment to arrive like never before, and in my head, I no longer knew if it was the anticipation of the new phase or if it was to see that man who was so special to me, perfect from head to toe, so fascinating that I was already certain that if I ever had a relationship with men, it would be with him. My loves, stay until the end and don't miss a single detail of this wonderful story. And if you like it, leave it in the comments. At last Thursday arrived. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon when my cell phone rang. It was Elvis canceling our appointment for that night, because there had been an electrical failure in his office, and as he would be traveling to a congress next week, we would have to reschedule our appointment for 40 days later. The world came crashing down on me. I felt a mixture of indignation and frustration. After all the tremendous praise I'd given him at the last appointment, he'd simply called and dismissed me for so long. Was it true or an excuse not to see me? I had to be sure, so I gathered my strength and asked him if my treatment wouldn't be impaired after so long. He promptly replied no, but I didn't give up and insisted that now that I was feeling much better, that my anxieties were disappearing, I didn't want to go so long without an appointment. As always, he patiently began to justify why it wouldn't be a problem. I listened to his explanations, and at the end I gave him a check, saying if he couldn't recommend another therapist to continue my treatment. For a few moments there was silence on the other end of the line, and then he said that he could refer a friend of his to me. But as we were starting the third phase, the first appointment would have to be with him. Pretending to be an expert on the subject, I readily agreed and asked him how we could go about it. He more than quickly suggested that the consultation should take place a little later, and in his apartment, promptly explaining that this new phase would involve relaxation techniques, so he could give me several of them, and his friend would simply accompany my development. Needless to say, I accepted without, of course, playing a little trick by asking if it would be all right, if his wife would agree, or if it wouldn't be better to put it off until the next day. He quickly made a point of explaining that he wasn't married, that he lived alone, and that we would have all the time we needed because she had already canceled her appointments for the following day. At 10 o'clock in the evening, I arrived at his apartment. It was small but very cozy. Elvis welcomed me in the most comfortable way possible. He wore a soft perfume, and the living room had only one lamp on. Soft music was playing on the stereo, and his countenance was filled with joy at welcoming me. We sat down face to face in the living room and began our consultation, but as it wasn't going to be official, he said that the drink was free and served us both a reinforced dose. He explained how this relaxation phase was going to be, which consisted of 2 stages. He was going to show me, through a video, some massage techniques that I would then pass on to my wife, so that we could practice them until she returned. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. The effect of the drink mixed with my adoration for him had completely confused my mind, so that in the bedroom I no longer remembered the first stage, making him patiently replay the video and start all over again. On the third attempt, already feeling embarrassed by the situation, I suggested that we let it go and that it would be better to wait for him to return. I thanked him for his goodwill and was about to get up when he suggested another attempt, as long as I didn't mind the situation, which would be to do there what he would do in his office, i.e. show the techniques shown in the video. But there was a problem. In his office, he had a special table with a headrest, and there in his apartment we would have to do everything on his bed. A wonderful chill ran through me, but I half-heartedly agreed, and so we headed for his bedroom. Once there, he removed the quilt from the bed. The room was half-lit. Huge mirrors covered not only the walls, but also the ceiling. He promptly turned on the stereo, and while he was arranging a pillow, he asked me to make myself comfortable. At that point, with 3 doses in my mind, I followed his lead. Then he took one of several creams and started. Then he asked me to empty my mind and concentrate only on the music, letting my body and mind float as if on clouds. Elvis's touch was precise, as if he knew exactly what to do. I was ready to cross the line, to feel what so many men like me had felt. Elvis was there too, ready, and I no longer had any doubts. What I was about to experience was not just physical, but a release of something I had repressed for a long time. With a serene gaze but full of intent, he told me that it was time to move on to a new technique. He spoke with a tone that mixed confidence and care, explaining that I was going to relax even more. As he calmly described the therapeutic benefits, my senses were already on high alert, his every word echoing in my mind, preparing me for what was to follow. But I couldn't help myself and kissed him straight away, giving myself over to someone I could never have imagined being together with. I'm sorry, that wasn't the intention, I said, looking him in the eye. He then kissed me after I'd finished talking and replied, "There's no need to apologize, just let go." After he said that to me, I knew that what would happen next would be unforgettable, something that would remain engraved in my memory forever. He approached me slowly, his eyes fixed on mine, as if he could see beyond my body, seeing everything that was trapped inside me, all the ties I'd held onto for so long. I felt vulnerable, but at the same time, something inside me was crying out for freedom, for a chance to finally be myself, without barriers, without masks. He realized this and, with a firm voice full of reassurance, surprised me once again by saying, "That's right, my friend. Relax. Let out all your anxieties and desires. Let go, forget your prejudices. Let out everything you've been holding in for 46 years." These words hit me like thunder, an order that not only allowed me, but forced me to let go of everything I had held so tightly inside for so long. It was as if he had opened a door that I didn't even know was locked, and I felt an explosion of emotions, fear, and a freedom that I had never experienced before. My eyes met his in the mirror, and there was something different about me, something I didn't even know existed, but which he had awakened. He had this power, this ability to make me lose control, to give myself over completely, and that's exactly what I did. At that moment, I was totally vulnerable and surrendered, and at the same time, it was as if by surrendering, I had found a new version of myself, a braver, freer, truer version. Our night was truly crazy, my loves. I can't even describe the intensity of everything that happened. After that night, in which every second was filled with uncontrollable adrenaline, he simply disappeared for a while. That's right, Elvis had to travel, and seriously, I almost died of anxiety waiting for him to come back. Every minute was a mixture of longing, tension, and crazy anticipation. I kept wondering when he would come back, and more than that, what it would be like when he finally did. The days without him seemed endless. It was as if something was missing inside me, an emptiness that only he could fill. When I say that my life changed completely after that night, I'm not exaggerating. Elvis wasn't just any chapter, he became a fundamental piece. And you know what? Thank God he came back, and today I'm still his faithful patient. The truth is that I was never able to get out of this treatment phase. What began as a novelty became a routine full of excitement and adrenaline. And I'll be honest with you, I've never been the same since that day. It sounds cliche, but it's real. I feel like a different person, a much better version of myself. When I say I've changed, I mean that I'm now much more confident, more open to experimenting with what used to scare me or make me nervous. If before I lived trapped in a pile of insecurities, today I feel completely free, unleashed to experience all the emotions that before I couldn't even imagine. The impact of this change has been so great that even my marriage has improved. A lot. It sounds contradictory, but it's true. My wife and I were in a bit of a slump, you know? The routine had taken over and we hardly connected as we used to. Our days went by, full of commitments and responsibilities, and the feeling was that we were there, but we weren't, you know? It was as if the connection we had at the beginning had been kept in a drawer, forgotten among the bills to pay, homework, and work schedules. But after everything I experienced with Elvis, something changed inside me. It was as if an old flame had ignited again, a spark that I thought had been extinguished. I felt like I was rediscovering a part of myself that I had forgotten existed. Elvis came into my life unexpectedly, bringing not only that spark, but a new vision of what I want and what really makes me happy. He made me realize that I had no reason to hide my desires, and that if I wanted my relationship with my wife to return to its former glory, I had to face it head on. With Elvis, I learned that stimulation can go beyond the obvious, and that the relationship between two people can be much more intense if both give themselves truly, without fear of exploring new possibilities. This idea kept hammering away in my head, and the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. If I wanted my marriage to be more than routine, I had to take action. I had to put aside my fear of what she would think and be honest. So I plucked up the courage and went to talk to her. I, who have always been more closed off about these things, decided to put my shame aside and be honest about what I was feeling. I got close to her, sat down on the sofa next to her, and took a deep breath. This was an important moment, and I knew I had to choose my words carefully. I began by talking about how important our marriage was to me and how much I loved her. She looked at me in surprise, a little suspicious, perhaps not quite understanding what I was getting at. But I continued saying that I felt we could do something to rekindle that passion that existed between us, and that I wanted to try something different, something that was giving me a new perspective on our relationship. Quick question, what would you do if you saw your husband or wife with someone else? Leave it in the comments. She listened intently with a curious look on her face. I realized that perhaps we had never had such a frank conversation about our desires, and that this was somehow creating a good tension between us. So I blurted out that I wanted her to take control. At first I was nervous, not knowing how she would react. My heart was beating fast because I never imagined that I would be there, asking something so direct but also so true for me. But to my surprise, my wife loved the idea. She entered into the proposal with an excitement I would never have expected. In the first few encounters, there was still a slight shyness, as if every gesture required a careful step to explore what was still new. But when she realized how much this new role excited her, it was as if a different glow came over her. It was something irresistible and unprecedented, which spilled over into her daily life, adding that touch of curiosity and expectation to every gesture, every exchange of glances. What used to be just part of the routine now became something lively and dynamic. I don't know exactly when we realized this, but our relationship became lighter, more fun, and full of discoveries. With each new encounter, adrenaline surrounded us, as if we were venturing into uncharted territory. You know that little chill in your stomach you get when you're experiencing something different? That feeling has become part of our life together. And I'll tell you, it's amazing how that kind of experience changes things. She has taken charge with an enthusiasm that impresses me. And somehow, it's as if the respect and trust between us has strengthened. Because to really trust, you have to give yourself over, and that's exactly what we're doing. Each new experience brings us closer together, bringing a sense of complicity and partnership. At times, just one look or expression is enough for us to know what the other person wants or expects. And that makes everything even more intense, more vibrant. Our nights have been like little episodes in a book full of emotion. Each page we turn together brings a new story, an experience that marks our relationship in a special way. And the most interesting thing is that even in the simplest moments, the feeling of newness doesn't disappear. Everything feels fresh and full of energy, as if time is always in our favor, giving us the opportunity to rediscover love and passion in ways we never imagined. At the same time, the trust we place in each other has only grown. This safe space we've created together allows us to be ourselves without reservation. The surrender is mutual, and the connection stronger than ever. The conversations that arise after these special moments are always light and sincere, as if we were on a kind of constant honeymoon. Feeling that we can reinvent ourselves without fear of judgment has been one of the best feelings of this process, and it's incredible how much happier and more complete our marriage has become. So, did you like this story? Let me know, because your opinion is what keeps us creating increasingly intense and engaging content. And of course, don't leave without subscribing to the channel. Activate the little bell because you don't want to miss anything new. We have new stories every day, always bringing you something to surprise you and increase your curiosity even more. So, if you want to keep following these stories full of adrenaline and intensity, don't forget to click that subscribe button right now. And there's more tomorrow. Get ready, because the next story is going to take you by surprise and push you to new limits. Every day is a new story, a new opportunity to experience something different and out of the ordinary. So don't miss out on this journey. See you tomorrow with another story that will make you question what is possible when it comes to love.